Hello everyone. This is another SuperSpaces Wednesday with NFT Go. Our guests are here. We're waiting for Matthew to connect with us, and then we can slowly hit it off. For you guys who are not familiar with NFT Go, we are all-in-one NFT aggregation platform that enables NFT community to analyze NFT market data and make transactions directly on our website, nftgo.io. We offer a set of powerful tools and features, including real-time market analytics, trading aggregator, developers API, rarity model, top mints, whale tracking, watch list, Twitter extension, and many, many more. So, nftgo.io, you go there, you create your own watch list, you start following around your favorite NFT projects, you start following around your favorite wallets, you start following around your favorite NFTs. You go to Google Store, find our Twitter extension by typing NFT Go, you'll be able to find it there. It's still in beta, so if you find any bugs, please let us know in our Discord channel or on our Twitter as well. If I haven't said this yet, but we also do offer a drops calendar. You can go directly to nftgo.io and see what's been hot and what's been next on the market. Looks like Matt has some connection issues, so we are going to wait for him a little bit more. This will be a slightly different SuperSpace than the ones that we usually host. So the ones that we usually host are related to a certain topic in the Web3 industry, such as metaverses, Web3 gaming, cybersecurity, etc., etc. But today we have an opportunity to host, I would easily say, a prodigy kid, Benyamin. He's a founder of Weird Whales, and really interesting kid. I had an opportunity to meet him in Lisbon on the conference there, and it was really amazing experience, an opportunity to talk with him and his father as well. He has a great support from his family. Actually, his father taught him a lot about the blockchain when he was still like super young. Matthew, I invited you to speak, so you can just accept the invitation and then we can slowly kick it off. Okay, we got everyone here. Once more, I'm Mary, Growth and Community Manager at NFT Go. Welcome everyone to another Wednesday SuperSpaces with NFT Go. Welcome Matthew, welcome Benjamin. We're super excited to host you guys.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for today's space.
Yeah,
hi Mary, hi everybody.
Yeah, if I could say, two of you could easily be named as our ambassadors, because you guys were the ones who were actually representing NFT Go in Global NFT Summit in London and on Zivu in previous few months. And we're super grateful for that one. It was really a huge exposure, I think, for both parties. And I hope that you enjoyed on those presentations as well.
Yeah, no problem. Me and Matt both really enjoyed delivering those talks. I think we delivered them twice, one at Zubu Live, and I can't remember the other event. But yeah, it was something different to other talks I'd done. I really liked how we could get hands-on, show NFT Go, do it live, and engage with the audience in a different way. So I really enjoyed that type of talk. Matt, what did you think about that?
Well, I think we make quite a good double act because Ben obviously is a celebrity in the NFT world. I'm not, but what I could bring was my kind of 20 years of expertise in Web2 and fintech and financial markets, and actually put things into perspective like one of the things we were talking about was the fact that everyone loves NFTs as everyone on this all the listeners do, but the size of the NFT market is so tiny when you compare it to kind of the Web2 world and financial companies. I think at the time, I haven't checked it recently, but at the time when we did the talk at Zebu Live a couple of weeks back, the entire NFT market was the equivalent of about $24 billion, which is about the size of Tesco, which is a UK supermarket. So it kind of puts it into perspective. And I think a lot of people didn't see it like that because they get a little bit caught up in the craziness sometimes and the thrill of everything. But actually take a step back and it's like, well, it's so small, which means there's a massive opportunity on the horizon.
Yeah, definitely. NFT marketplace is just yet opening up. What's important, and I've been highlighting it in previous week, is that NFTs are just layer tech. And once we have everyone understand this term, then we can slowly start developing it. But let's start slowly with rolling out the questions I have prepared for both of you. So first of all, Ben, you are the youngest creator in the NFT world. So how did you first get interested into NFTs? How did you get an idea? I want to create my own collection. How did that develop? Please give us more insights.
When I got into this space, I was a developer. From a young age, my dad would often come home, bring out his laptop and start coding. And obviously that triggered a lot of curiosity within me and my brother because constantly day and night he was typing away at his computer and this is what he truly loved. And once he noticed our curiosity, he got us set up with a few laptops and we started coding. And over the years, he set us on a daily coding regime. And in terms of Bitcoin and NFTs, I was born in 2009 and the Bitcoin white paper came out in 2008. So I'm not saying when I was 1 year old, I was aware of Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is something that's always been there in the background. I can't remember the first time I'd heard of the word Bitcoin. And I think a few years later, my dad's friend, he also organized the first Bitcoin meetup in the Midlands. And through this, he traveled around Eastern Europe and made loads of new contacts, such as Adam Back and big Bitcoiners like Adam Back, as I mentioned. And last year, that same friend of my dad, he bought an NFT called a Rare Pepe for $27,000. And once I heard that someone was willing to spend this much money on a JPEG, I wanted to start researching about this industry as I was also curious about NFTs, the same as I was curious about programming years ago. And I got into the space, started researching, watching YouTube tutorials, and figured out the best way to learn about this space was to experiment within the space. And that launched me to go ahead and launch a few collections. And my second collection, Weird Wells, went completely viral. I've made so many new friends online, and I'm here today to talk about my story.
So when you say at young age, is it safe to ask how old were you when you first started programming, and when did you launch your collection?
So I was 5 and my brother was 6, and I'm not saying we were programming, but we were learning to code. And last year, when I was 12, that's when I got mainly into the NFT space and decided to launch my own collection.
That's really crazy. That journey is actually I couldn't imagine like how is it for you at such young age, just to like start exploring the technology that has been around for a while and gaining such a huge success. You said there was another collection before you launched Weird Whales. Which collection was that one?
So before I launched Weird Wells, which was a generative collection, I tried to create NFTs by hand online, and I was doing this. And when I got up to 40 NFTs, I realized that there must be a generative process to this. There must be an algorithm that these collections are using to spit out thousands of NFTs. So obviously, I started going on Twitter, going in through Twitter Spaces, engaging with the NFT community, joining Discord servers. And when I joined the Bored Apes Discord, someone had kindly sent me to an ape holder called V. And V is a radiologist from South Africa. And I kindly asked if he could share a Python script with me, which he used for his project, Boring Bananas. And he sent it across on Discord. I'd never met V before. I didn't even know what he looked like at this time. I was just solely chatting to him on Discord. He sent me this Python script and I started playing with it. And I'm not an artist myself, more of a developer. So with the Weird Wells, I wanted pixel art because it was an easy form of art to learn. There's so many tutorials on that.
Wow, that's really amazing. Not knowing someone and someone like I think that's like the huge thing in Web3. Everyone are keen on and opening on sharing their knowledge, and then that's like one of the most important, I think, bases that actually Web3 has. And I'm sure that a lot of people are wondering why did we invite Matt and Ben in the same space. So, Matthew, question about who you are and what do you do at iPushPull and work in fintech? Can you give us a little bit more insights on that one?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mary. So I've been in fintech for 20 odd years or so. I set up my first company when I was about 23, 24. It was called RanSquawk. It's now called NewsSquawk. And it's basically a real-time audio news service for traders. So we started that off, grew very quickly, had like 30 analysts looking at market moving news all day long, had about 20,000 customers globally, kind of banks and hedge funds and trading firms, things like that. I did that for 10 years, and then I wanted to get more into the technology side. So I co-founded a company called iPushPull, which is real-time data sharing and workflow. So we digitize a lot of manual workflow that you see in financial markets. Like everyone will be familiar with things like the S&P and the Nasdaq and stocks that are traded. You can go onto a platform and click a button and trade. Only like half of the world's volume is actually done like that. The other half of the world's volume, things, bonds and swaps and currencies, a lot of stuff is still done manually and people typing into Bloomberg chats to each other to do trades, and even picking up the phone. That happened a lot during COVID, but there's still half of the world's volume is done like that, which a lot of people don't actually appreciate. So iPushPull digitizes that. Now, how did I kind of cross paths with Ben? So just before COVID, actually, I started getting into mentoring. I started off helping mentor students at my old school. I went to a very mediocre / underperforming state school here in the UK. Both my parents are immigrants, and we didn't have any kind of family or wealth or network or anything like that. So I think over the last 20 years, I've kind of managed to build some businesses and build a good network as well in that time. And I wanted to be able to share that back initially to the students back at my old school. So I started doing that. And that was just before COVID. And then when COVID hit, this is for kind of 15, 16-year-olds, so high school or secondary school here in the UK. Obviously, all things like exams were completely turned on their head for everybody. But one of the things which had a complete rug pull was work experience. And for me, work experience was really important because I did my work experience when I was 15 years old at a local stockbrokers. And that got me excited about financial markets because I always wanted to be a trader when I was young. And after that kind of week's work experience, every single Christmas, Easter, summer holiday that I had, I went back in and did more work experience. So by the time I got to university and I was looking for a job, I probably had 6 months worth of work experience. But the other thing is I built a network in this time, and the people I was working with then gave me a few contacts of people in the city in London. And then one of those conversations ended up with my first job. So for me, that was super important. So then going back to the kids and students at my old school, I wanted to be able to provide work experience for them. And because I had this network, both in fintech and financial markets, I then got together, started off last summer with like five students. And by the end of the summer, it was like 15. And I organized kind of virtual mentoring sessions with about 15 different people in fintech and financial markets. I brought them up into the city of London, and we did a whole day where we met like the mayor of London. We went into Revolut, we went into Goldman Sachs, spoke to like people at blockchain.com, and did all this really cool stuff that I thought, oh, if I was 15, this would get me excited. So I did that last summer. But then after I did that, I had this kind of snowball effect where other schools, other companies, lots of people were getting in contact because they wanted to get involved. I think around a similar time, was when I saw Benyamin go viral, which was it like June last year? Ben, was it June?
July. So
July.
July.
Yeah, July. Yeah, and I saw Benjamin go viral in July, and like everyone, I saw it, and I was like, "That's amazing! What a great story!" And one of the things I was doing at the time was there's a podcast series that me and Ben now kind of co-host called Interviews with Leaders in FinTech and Web3, and before Ben kind of joined as well, I interviewed Ben because I thought it's such a fascinating story. Just he's achieved so much so young. Plus, NFTs were really kicking off at that point in time, and it was a really interesting topic. So we did that, and then after the following couple of weeks, Benjamin and also his father Imran, who's a developer and involved in financial markets, we all got talking, and we kind of thought, let's all kind of join things together, and we can use kind of Benjamin's notoriety and celebrity status to help show people that anyone can do this. Anyone can learn these skills. And then there's people out there like me and lots of other people like me that want to help get people, kind of tooled up, skilled up, and get into industries like fintech and Web3. And that was kind of where Work in Fintech is born, which is how then all this is connected.
And how would you describe Work in Fintech, and what's like the main thing that you would like to achieve from it?
It's a mentoring and education program. So we work with companies, some big name companies in crypto and in financial markets, where they help sponsor these programs via NFTs to then provide all of the mentoring and learning and opportunities for free. So we are looking to kind of build this up and help as many people as possible. It kind of started off with my school, and now has grown to lots of other schools in the UK. We've got someone in the US as well. So the plan is to continue to expand, but with the help of using NFTs as the mechanism to fund all of the programs that we want to do. And we've actually, we launched the NFT project back in just before NFT NYC, which was in June. And at that point, we were the first kind of B2B NFT, because we sell the NFTs to companies. And we sell them at quite a high ticket price as well. It's like $50,000 for one. But then for that, the company is getting a lot of benefit out of it, as well as helping lots of young people.
That's really awesome to hear, guys. So basically, you got collided somehow by the fate, and that's really, really, really amazing. I'm interested, Ben, now in a bit of your story. So we know that you are founder of Weird Whales, but what would you say that has been your biggest success up to date?
I think it's a good question, and I think that the success from Weird Whales has led to other great successes. For example, I think the friends that I've made along the way is probably one of the greatest successes, even above the launch of Weird Whales, even though Weird Whales kind of led into all the new contacts I made. But I'm truly grateful for the people I've met in this space. For example, you yourself, Marie, and also Matt. And as Matt said, as we've become friends within the space, we've managed to launch businesses together, which is quite cool to hear.
That's really amazing to say that actually friendship is one of the biggest success. And I think that what Discord actually gave us and Twitter, what gave us in this web industry, is actually being, able to reach out to the people in such a seamless way and get people around us so easily, and collect all the knowledge and collect all the stuff that we actually need, to produce and to provide a lot of stuff. So we both mentioned that you were at Zebu and Global NFT London Summit, where you've run some workshops using NFT Go. So how did that go?
Yeah, it went really well. For example, at the Global NFT Summit, many people came to us after the talk and said that was the best talk that they had heard so far. So that was very heartwarming to hear. And both me and Matt really enjoyed the Global NFT Summit talk and the Zebu live talk as well, which was the same thing. But I felt we could express ourselves more because there was less people in the room, but we can then engage with the audience more, which is quite cool.
Nice.
Can I just
Yeah,
add
of course,
as
of course.
well? Benjamin is 13 years old. He's such a great speaker. Like you can hear now when he is talking, he's the loveliest loveliest guy. He's super smart, but he's such a great presenter. So me and Benjamin, I think the first time we probably the first time we met face to face, I think, Ben, but the first time that we spoke at an event together was actually in Oxford University back in November last year. And I think up to that point, Benjamin, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Benjamin, but I don't think Benjamin had done any large kind of conference speaking. And I remember saying to Ben before, I said, it's a little bit different when you're talking to people in an audience, you can see them, than it is on the screen. I said, if you get nervous, it's fine. You just take some deep breaths, slow down. He was like, no, I'm fine. and Benjamin went up and he just smashed it. He was amazing. And I kind of went up after him, and I kind of felt a very pale second in comparison.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, so you were correct. Yeah, Oxford, when I spoke there last November, it was the first big, in real life speaking event I had done. And then through Oxford, I slowly went to more and more conferences like NFT, NYC. I also went to a conference in Lisbon. I've spoken with Matt at a few conferences as well. And I also spoke recently again at Oxford a few weeks ago about avatars and community building. So I'm slowly building up my journey to going to more and more conferences.
That's really awesome. I remember your tweet actually about where you sent your father a picture of that you just created your collection, and then the second thing you see is your picture on Times Square, and that must have been an amazing feeling for you, Benjamin, right?
Yeah, like if you go and look at my pinned post, it's the first messages I actually sent. Like that screenshot is a real screenshot that I sent to my dad on Skype saying, "Dad, I created my NFTs. They look sick." And who would have known that in a year's time I would have seen my picture on a billboard in Times Square?
That's really, really, really amazing. So, I mean, you are 13 years old now today, and what do your friends have to say about your career and the way that everything turned out for you?
So when I first sold out my collection, my friends didn't really know about it because it was quite big in the crypto space, but outside of that, it wasn't really heard of. But a few weeks later, when it got into the big mainstream media such as Times, CNBC, BBC, that's when my friends had seen that article by themselves, and they congratulated me at the time. But we don't really talk about it much at school.
So, do you think that in general, like they are not interested in crypto and NFTs, or are they yet to learn about it? Where do you see the gap between you and your peers?
I think most people in my class are not really into NFTs and crypto, but I think it's an educational barrier. I think my generation will adopt it quicker than the previous generations because we're already used to buying digital assets, for example, cosmetics in Fortnite and Roblox with V-Bucks. So we're used to buying digital assets with a digital currency. That's exactly what NFTs and crypto is, but you just have more transparency, and you actually hold your assets instead of them being monitored by these centralized Web2 platforms.
And do you think that the NFT as a word itself is turning them off, or it's just a barrier that you just mentioned?
That's a good point, because recently Reddit, they launched their own NFTs. Well, they didn't call them NFTs. They called them digital, collectible avatars. And they didn't mention the word NFT anywhere on the website, even though the underlying technology was NFTs. And through the Reddit drop, they managed to create 3 million wallets. That's more than the amount of active monthly wallets on OpenSea. So Reddit definitely smashed it with their collectible avatars as they onboarded loads to the space without them even knowing about it.
Yeah, same what happened with Top Shot. They're only mentioning NFTs like I think once on their website, and people got into them like super easily and seamlessly. They weren't even knowing that they're holding like something that's in on a blockchain, and it's really amazing actually how it turned out to a lot of people actually becoming a serious traders after they onboarded with Top Shot. So I'm hoping that will happen with the people who just onboarded via Reddit, because like you just mentioned, it's really amazing what they have done, and people don't even know that they're still part of the game. So that's really interesting. So Matt, you are coming from traditional finance system, and you've done this presentations of NFT Go, which is like we said, analytics platform. So since you have a lot of experience in data analytics, what are the specific problems in the existing financial services sector that Web3 can solve in terms of data and analytics?
Well, just before I answer that, just to finish off what Ben was saying and you were saying about NFTs not being mentioned in Reddit and Top Shot and a few other places, it goes back to this. I suppose it's the nature of where we are in the maturity of the industry and the technology, because everything's been very developer led up until recently, and that's why the developers like talking about technical things. But then you've started to have this crossover then into the mainstream, and I think the whole profile pictures is then very easy for people to understand and consume, and some people can identify with that. I think the interesting thing with the whole industry with NFTs is actually, and me and Ben have seen it when we go to a lot of the conferences, where there's actually a good mix of people. It's not just men or white males. There's lots of females. There's lots of mix of races and genders and everything, which is great to see, right? And you don't see that in financial markets at all. But again, it goes back to the, if some people listening might be familiar with, there's something called Crossing the Chasm, and it's talking about the technology adoption life cycle. It's a good book as well. It's by Jeffrey Moore, and it's Crossing the Chasm. And if you're into technology sales, it's kind of a must read. But essentially, it's the technology adoption life cycle where you've got the very beginning. The first, you think about a normal distribution like a bell curve. The first bit is innovators, and you'll have a little tiny 2.5% or so of that whole 100% distribution. That's innovators. That's all the people that have been doing stuff, up until this point. Then you've got like the early adopters, which then you've started to see in the last probably 12 months, 6 months or so. And then the crossing the chasm bit comes from moving from early adopters to the early majority. And then you have early majority, then you have late majority, then you have laggards. So if you think about it, say like with an iPhone, the people that were queuing around the block when the iPhone came out, they're the innovators. Whereas if you fast forward probably, 10 years later, your grandma has got an iPhone, so she would be a laggard. So you'll see the same thing with NFTs, right? So you've got this technology adoption life cycle where it's just been super early and everything's been very techie focused. Whereas now we're beginning to see demand for it from the early adopters. They want to see real world use cases. And you're seeing now the door and floodgates beginning to open from moving from collectibles and PFPs to actually, okay, we can use NFTs for tickets and micro credentials and tokenizing real estate and trading and a whole bunch of stuff. And I think when we were going through one of the conferences that Ben and I spoke at, when we were showing the NFT Go platform, one of the, I forget the name of the page, but Mary, you'll probably tell me, but one of the pages is where you can see the categories and kind of the market map of the different kind of sectors within NFTs. And I think when we were doing it at that point in time, it was when like Unstoppable Domains was selling loads of, short code ENS addresses or ETH addresses. And then so you kind of saw this shift in that particular week when there was loads of sales of like ETH, .eth addresses versus PFP pictures. But then actually what we think, what Ben and I think, and people who are probably more coming in it from a corporate and enterprise perspective is you're going to see this growth of all these different categories. And PFP there over time will just dwarf to not a very small amount when you then have the world's supply chain, the world's food industry, the world's financial markets, all been run on NFTs. So I suppose then going then to answering your question about what's the problems in financial markets, there aren't any problems per se. Everything works fine, but everything is the same with, you'll see in all the main industries, everything is very centralized. So therefore it's a bit of a monopoly. In the technology world, there's a monopoly in, with Google and Microsoft and Facebook or Meta or what have you. And they all own your data, if it's Google or Meta. But similarly, in the world of financial markets, looking at data in financial markets, like data's big business in financial markets is a $50 billion per year revenue generating business. And go back to what I mentioned at the beginning, where the entire NFT market is, $25 billion. Just selling financial data, financial market data, is worth 50 billion per year. Now, what that is you've got all the major exchanges in the world, like NASDAQ and the London Stock Exchange and NYSE, and all of those exchanges. If you want to subscribe to see those data feeds, then you have to pay the exchange to do it. So exchanges make their money either through the trades that you're doing, and they charge you on the trades, or they sell the data, or both. So if I'm sitting in a bank and I'm on a trading desk, or if I'm a hedge fund manager, I'll have my Bloomberg terminal, which I pay $30,000 a year for, but then I will probably pay another $10,000, $15,000 a year just to have all the data feeds that I want. So I think the problem is actually you've got this centralization of a monopolization of financial data in these kind of exchange traded worlds. Then you've got the other world, which is OTC, over the counter, and that's some of the stuff I do with iPushPull, where you've got data is not necessarily owned by any one person. It's kind of an aggregation of a negotiation, for example, and that becomes the data. So there's quite a lot of opportunity there. One of the things we're looking at with iPushPull is, if you imagine where people are negotiating a trade in financial markets, what happens is someone says, "Can I have a price for this?" A trader will say, "Can I have a price for this?" A salesperson will say, "Yes, it's X," and then I'll say, "No, I want Y." You'll have this negotiation. Now, one of the things we're looking at is, can that be an NFT? It's a unique event, and it changes state every time the negotiation goes backwards and forwards. Things like that can be an NFT. Things where there's areas where Web3 is now beginning to come into the financial market data space. You've got something called the PIF network, which is built on Solana. And if you take, Sam Bankman-Fried, he used to be a futures trader back in the day, right? So he was used to high frequency trading and used to the ease of how it works. Because remember, trading and derivatives trading has been around for, 40 years or so. So it's very easy and everything's slick and robust and it's very low latency, which is not like it is in Web3 at the moment. But then FTX, he's then built out of where he started off as this high frequency trader. He knows the look and feel and how latency and speed of trades and all this should happen. And he's brought all of that into FTX. And then what he's doing is then he's actually going around buying up, these other trading companies. He's talking to the CFTC to try and bring these new Web3 approaches to trading into the historical kind of futures and options world. And then the PIF network is something which he kind of started, but then since then you've got all of these big financial market makers like your Citadels and Jump Trading and people like that, who then moved into crypto. And then what the PIF network is actually providing decentralized financial market data. So basically all these different market makers all contribute a price on chain, and then there's basically a spread of that price, and that becomes the mid price, which then is used for financial market data. So if you go on that says PYTH, if you go onto the PIF network, you can actually subscribe for free for financial market data. Whereas if you went to the NASDAQ or the CME or London Stock Exchange, you would be paying hundreds or thousands of pounds a year to access that data. So I think that's one area where Web3 is maturing very quickly, and it's beginning to. I don't think people in financial markets are scared of it yet, because it's still very early. But I think the smart people are looking at it and thinking about, okay, how's this going to disrupt the business model that we have in financial markets? How can we embrace it? How can we work with it?
Well, you definitely shared a lot of things, and I'm sure that same as I am at this point, a lot of our listeners are a bit confused, but there are a lot of things that definitely are intersecting in Web3 and Web2. And when speaking of analytics, guys, share now your favorite NFT Go feature. What would you like to highlight when you are doing your research? Benjamin, maybe you can kick it off.
So yeah, my favorite NFT Go feature, when me and Matt were doing the talk, what really interested me was the feature where you could filter wash trades, as it's not something as easy as just looking at the blockchain. You have to really have some research behind that, and that's quite interested me because I remember there was this graph of comparing different NFT trading platforms like OpenSea, LuxRent, X2Y2, and without the filter wash trades feature on, X2Y2 was on the leaderboard. It was at the top. It was very high. But when you pressed the filter wash trades button, X2Y2 was squashed down and OpenSea was leading the table again. So it shows a lot of wash trading happens on X2Y2 as it's the platform where the royalties go to the people who stake their tokens. And obviously through this, it's resulted in lots of wash trading. So the wash trading feature was definitely the coolest for me.
And for me, I think it's what I mentioned earlier, where you've got it's the market overview page, where you can then see the broader macro view of what's going on, both in terms of volume, both in terms of the category market cap. Because again, that was the piece that I found fascinating. I'm looking at it now on my screen. So you've got gaming, collectibles, PFP, art, metaverse, DeFi, IP, social, music, utility, land, domain names. And then so looking at how the growth of the different categories that's really interesting for me, because it's NFTs moving beyond this kind of collectibles and art narrative and actually being used for lots of other things in the real world.
Nice, thanks for sharing that one. So for the rest of you guys, if you have never seen NFT Go website, maybe now it's time that you check it out for the first time. So you just have to go to nftgo.io. There aren't any subscriptions, there aren't any NFTs that you need to use our analytics. Basically everything is just for free. Currently, you can create your watch list. Like I've said at the beginning, if you just joined, you can go and create your own watch list. You can follow your favorite wallets. You can follow your favorite whales, NFT collections, and NFTs as well. And if you are a developer and listening to this one now, we also have our API. So you can go to developers.nftgo and or just find the link at the footer of our page or in our products section as well, next to our Discord bots and the price estimator that is yet to come. So those are just some of the features. My actually favorite feature is when you go to the collection overview and then you go to the holders tab, and then there you can see a lot of different stuff, you know, from seeing how many blue chip holders are involved, how many whales are involved, what is holding amount distribution, holding period distribution, etc., etc. So there's a lot of fun things when seeing and when searching, scrolling through NFT Go. Everything is pretty much straightforward. So even if you never had encountered analytics before, you can always hover over the small eye icon and you will get the explanation of what that certain analytic is about. And going back to our conversation, so basically what I want to ask you guys is, you have work in FinTech, you have iPush PoolMat. So can you give us more information about your startup adventures and what are the lessons learned? How is that reflecting now with your relationship with Ben? And also, Ben, this one goes for you as well.
So I would say that it's in the same way where I was trying to share, I suppose, my experiences and my network when I was mentoring students in my old school. I'm totally opening up that up to Ben as well, and really helping Ben, I suppose, see things from I suppose this Web 2 sense, because Ben's only grown up in this Web 3 world. And so that's one thing that, and I think Ben's father as well, Imran, has done an amazing job with helping Ben to be very open-minded and meeting loads of new people. In terms of, I suppose, the things that I've learned along the way, starting a business is, or having a startup is hard work. You can't underestimate how hard it is. Ben is one of these very, very rare overnight success stories, but Ben has moved way beyond that and is thinking for the long term and how he can build a business and how he can get ideas and how he can build a network. And that's super important. Anyone from any age, you can start, even if you're in your 50s or if you're 15, you can always be building a network. And I think something you mentioned, Mary, earlier on about kind of this Web3 world. What I really like about the Web3 world is it is so easy to meet people and to talk to people, and everyone kind of shares their time. Whereas in the world that I've grown up in financial markets, it's quite dog eat dog. And, people, what aren't the friendliest, and there's lots of egos. If I'm a big trader at this bank, then I'm a master of the universe, and I'm amazing, and they won't spare their time for people. Whereas because of the nature of Web3 is still so early, you don't get that ego. I think you will at some point in the future, maybe like 3, 4, 5 years time. I think you'll start to have that when you then have some big companies that dominate, and it will just become business as usual type stuff. But it's a really special time now, which I really like. But in terms of, I suppose, any advice about having a startup or a business, you need to be very resilient. You need to have a lot of tenacity and just keep trying at things. You do need to be able to work hard. I think it's easier to have a startup or a business idea or to take some risk when you're younger. And I do say this to a lot of people that I mentor, where when you've just started out, if you're like 17 or 18 or 20, or before you have any big commitments in your life, then it's easy for you to change and try lots of different new things. And the more experiences you can expose yourself to, the more you will learn. And it might be that you might think that you failed in something and then you go and do something else. But every failure that you have is a little bit of wisdom that's stored in your brain somewhere. And one day it will come back out again. And I think don't be afraid of failure, and you have the ability to take a lot more risk. I'm not talking about trading or something else. I'm talking about risk with the direction of your life and your direction of travel and your career and things that you're doing. You can afford to try things and get them wrong and learn from them, or you might get them right, which is even better. But I think as time goes on, I'm 43 now, and I've got kids and I've got a house and all these things, and so you've got more commitments, and I can't just up sticks and chop and change. So that thing, I would definitely experiment when you're young, and experiment throughout your life, and always be learning. That's kind of a core tenet that me and kind of Ben really preach about. You always need to be learning. If you follow like Ben's Twitter, he's always tweeting about all these kind of things that may not look that connected together, but actually they are. And it's that ability to be able to spot patterns, which then, where you've been picking up all these experiences over the years, through things which you think you failed or think you might have done well or whatever it might be, over time, it will improve your pattern recognition, right? It's the same as when you're training a machine learning model. The more data you put into it, the better the pattern recognition is. And it's the same with learning and business and life, where you can see all these things and then you can connect the dots. And then that's when you as a person, as a human, has a lot of value, when you can connect the dots between different disparate things that other people can't see. And then that's where you can be ahead of the curve. And that, again, is where it's really exciting at this point in time. Think ahead of the curve. Don't think about, trying to just trade PFP pictures day in, day out. Think about, how can I build the next platform or the next protocol so that I can be providing, the shovels for people, rather than just trading where you're very limited in what you can make in any given day when you're trading. compared to if you could be building multi-billion-dollar companies. So I think, take risks when you're young, work really hard. You've got to be really resilient, and have a good team of people around you and a good friendship network. It's that old adage that the average of the people you spend the most time with. So make sure those people that you spend time with are leaders and innovators and amazing people. And they don't necessarily have to be people that you know and you meet face to face. It could be someone you've never met, but they've got an amazing podcast or they're on Twitter all the time. You can still learn from people. That's what's great about the internet now. Everything is so open. So that's kind of my thoughts. Ben, what do you think from your perspective?
Yeah, that was a great answer, Matt. And I have to say, I've loved working with you in this space. You're like another mentor to me, just like my dad. And you've got loads of knowledge to share. I've learned so many new things just being on this Twitter space with you here today in terms of financial markets and even crypto and Web3. And another thing I think that was quite interesting that you mentioned was startup, like with advice for starting a startup. And one of them you said was having an open mind. And I watched a video and Elon Musk said that you should have first principle thinking. So always bring everything down to the basics and think, what do I know here that's actually true, and always explore everything. If you did that with the internet, you could have created a business that would have boomed today, like Twitter or Facebook. And if you do that with NFTs and Web3 now, who knows where you'll be in 5 to 10 years.
That's really awesome to hear from you guys, and especially from you, Benjamin. I mean, like, sorry for like constantly repeating your age, but as someone who has like 13 years, you really do sound much mature. And I think like with having someone like Ben at your side, that's something that is really amazing and really useful. To have like someone who can actually understand you, where you like intersect with your goals, and just like spreading the positive words and positive vibes and knowledge. That's really amazing. We have Modeweight, Eric Spivak, with us. He's founder of the largest NFT and DeFi community in the world. He says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with team. He requested to speak, so Eric, floor is all yours. Please do share your thoughts.
Well, don't roll out a red carpet or anything. Jesus. I appreciate you. And I was just going to double down on what was just said. It's like, a lot of us, we don't take steps backwards to go forwards, but realistically, we have to unlearn and unpack and then relearn and learn new things. And when you're building something that nobody else has built and you have no prototypes or base models or case studies or market research, even, you have nothing around you to give you any form of confidence in what you're building, it's very easy to get down and out and find yourself feeling a little lost and confused because nobody's done what you've done before. And so to be committed and have conviction and dedication to building something that the world's never seen is a really it's an interesting feeling. And I remember when I was 16, I was building through people randomly on Craigslist that I was finding, and I built what would be considered like the world's first and only online open mic. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you could jump onto the platform as a rapper, or you could join as a listener. It's kind of like Twitter Spaces. You can join as a speaker, or you can join as a listener. And that's also like Clubhouse, and also like Ventrilo and Paltalk and TeamSpeak and Zoom and Hangout and so on and so forth. But, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, I was getting doors slammed in my face from Sony, Warner, Universal, BMG, Interscope, like you name it. Every single fucking music entity that I was bringing it to looked down on me because of lack of college education, due to my age, due to not understanding what quote unquote streaming was and thinking it had something to do with water. And I'm over here like, this is revolutionary and it's going to change the music industry forever if you guys adopt it and if you guys take parts of this. And I saw all of these different streaming platforms slowly but surely start to pop up. and I saw all these blogs talking about all the streaming platforms pop up, and before you knew it, it literally consumed an industry. But for the 4 or 5 years that I was building it and trying to get support in building it and being able to break it down to a digestible format for people to understand, it's like breaking down the format change, and from vinyl, cassette, MP3, USB, etc. We go through format changes our entire lives, and what's happening right now with cryptocurrency and Web3 and blockchain and NFTs is another format change. It's we went from cash to check to credit, debit to Venmo, Cash App, Stripe, PayPal, etc., etc. So all that to say this is like, if you're in this room and you're building something that might have you afraid of the unknown, like that fear, that false evidence appearing real, that fuck everything and run, that fear or doubt that might exist, like do not by any means let that hold you back from building something amazing, because everything in this space right now is an experiment. Every contract that's deployed is an experiment. Every NFT collection, whether it goes well or not, whether it sells or not, that doesn't dilute or dictate or detract from the fact that you did it, which there's 900,000 people that didn't at all. So just, chip away at the iceberg at your own pace. But at the end of the day, like, don't be afraid of the unknown, and it's never too late to reinvent yourself. And I think a lot of people kind of forget those things.
I just love what you just said. Never forget to reinvent yourself, because yeah, people do get afraid. A lot of things are changing. Technologies are emerging so fast. I've got at one point like so confused. Who am I? Like, I'm quite tech savvy. My father has been into like programming and computers since forever, and I found myself in one period of life when I could not understand a single thing that tech is like offering me. But then, like, I remember how my journey started, and I was doing my regular Web2 job, and for 6 hours a day, 6 to 7 hours per day. And then the rest of the night, next 8 hours, I would just be like, reading, learning. So I gave myself a possibility to reinvent myself and to start like aiming for new goals and like just exploring the space. And just touching the weed. Can I be part of this? Is this something that I'm interested in, etc., etc.? So it's really amazing how you just literally took my thoughts and put them in one longer sentence that explains everything. Like, never be afraid. Everything is experiment, and never be afraid, in taking the first step, because making the first step is making you a winner. Even if you lose, even if you make a mistake, it's okay to make mistakes. And unfortunately, a lot of people are afraid of making mistakes. And when talking about that, Benjamin, a question for you. When you like notice that your collection is viral, what was your first reaction? Like, you've made a load of money on this collection, and how did you like react? What was the what was the community that's in your real life were saying? Like, were they thinking like, okay, this is just another, let's say, crypto scam or whatever? What were the impressions?
As you can tell, I was so shocked on the day. So I launched a collection around 12 p.m. and BST UK time. And for the first few hours, it was quite slow. There were only 1 or 2 sales. I think the max it got up to was 100, maybe around that. And in the evening, actually my nighttime, 9 p.m., when America started to wake up, that's when the sales started to pop off. Every time you reloaded the page, there were 100 more new sales. My notifications on Twitter were going crazy because everyone was posting about this Weird Whales project and the whales that they had bought. So I was trying to stay on top of my Twitter. It was such a crazy day, but I absolutely loved it and enjoyed it. And unfortunately, I had to go to sleep when the collection had sold out, even though I was so eager to stay awake. I woke up the next morning, went back onto Twitter, fought off some FUD, and honestly, it was just a crazy day. And you mentioned the money. For me, what really was crazy about the day was how much I had learned and how many new friends I had made along the way. That's what really interested me on that day.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've mentioned the money just because, you are a 13-year-old who sorry for me, like I'm not ironically laughing. This is really like mind-blowing experience having this opportunity to talk with you, because the news that we were getting is, okay, this boy made a bunch of money. Nobody was like actually pointing out on the tech. They were just like speaking like, this boy made a load of money, this boy made a load of money. So it was really strange, for me, when I received the news of Weird Whales. That was like, okay, who is this person, and how did he manage to do this, and what was his idea? So can you tell us a little bit more about the project itself, and what is actually the current utility of Weird Whales?
So Weird Whales is a project of 3,350 pixelated whales. They're digital collectibles, as I called them, on the minting website. And they had all sold out within a few hours on July the 19th. I launched Weird Whales back last year in 2021. And I was inspired a lot by CryptoPunks. That's where the pixel art idea came from. And if you look at the Weird Whales, the traits are also inspired of CryptoPunks. And a cool touch I added to the Weird Whales was that the backgrounds were the same as the Cool Cat backgrounds. So if you look at the Weird Whales, it's like a mashup of crypto culture with the pixel art from the CryptoPunks, the backgrounds from Cool Cats, and just the whale in itself. As you know, in crypto, a whale is someone with 1,000 bitcoins. So I chose the whale because of that definition within the crypto ecosystem. And in terms of Weird Whales, many collections at the time, like I mentioned, Cool Cats, for their name, they had an alliteration. For example, they had the animal, which they whatever they were, and an adjective before that describing the animal. Like I mentioned, pudgy penguins, which came after, but Cool Cats, you get the idea. And that's where the inspiration for Weird Whales came.
Awesome, really awesome. I'm going to do a small breakdown of the project, if that's okay with you. So currently you got 1,681 holders. You have 373 blue chip holders in Weird Whales, and actually 23 whales that are involved. So NFT Go actually determines whale as someone who has over 1 million assets in their NFT wallets, in NFT assets. In terms of holding period distribution, you have like super strong community, over 74% that are holding for 1 year. And in terms of holding amount distribution, you have the most users who have only one NFT in their wallet. That's like 73% of the people, which is really awesome. And this means that your community is quite strong. So what are some common things, and how does your day looks like in terms of being a founder of a NFT project, going to school? I'm guessing that you also have like activities outside of school. How does that look like?
So in terms of a normal school day, I would obviously wake up. My school starts at 8:35, so I'd be at school. My school, it's a great school. They've got their own lake, and obviously through the lake they offer so many activities. And they've got horse riding as well, which is quite cool, archery, and then the traditional sports like rugby and hockey and cricket in the summer. So I'm currently doing rugby, and I represent my school in a team. And that's the normal school day. Obviously, when I get back from school, I'll proceed to do my homework first, then donate a few hours in the evening to getting back online and jumping and interacting with the NFT space again. And usually on the weekends, on Saturday in the morning, I usually have a rugby match. And after that, since it's a weekend, I've got a free day. I jump on and interact with the NFT community. Sometimes I have some podcasts or Twitter spaces lined up. And in terms of activities I do outside of school, on Tuesday, I do swimming. And on Friday, I do taekwondo. And I've been doing taekwondo since I was 6 years old. It's always been something that's interested me. So every Friday, I go down to the dojo, as they call it, and do some taekwondo training. I'm currently on black tag, which is one belt away from black belt. So I'm working towards that.
Whoa, so basically your days are packed, and they're definitely packed with some amazing activities. And this is actually a great tip to everyone who is listening now. Like, do sports, like take care of your mental health. It's really important. Don't be stuck to the PC and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna miss out on something. No, you're not gonna miss out on anything. Like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Other projects will come out. So don't like worry about FOMO, and don't worry about stuff that are insignificant. But your health is the most important thing in your life. And I think what Ben is just what just presented to us, how his days look: swimming, taekwondo, and rugby. That's really, really, really amazing, man. I honestly have.
But I think, Mary, it helps also for that resilience part, because you've got the kind of the physical side of keeping fit and doing martial arts and sports and so on, but the resilience side, doing sports is a really good way to learn how to lose
Exactly.
and learn how to cope with losing and to learn how to work with a team. So there's so many benefits to doing it. You know, I did martial arts from when I was like 5 years old, all the way up to my early 20s. But then that set me up, so well, along with some other sports that I did, that it does help with resilience. Just wanted to kind of just put that in there.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. So as we're entering now the end of the first hour of our space, I would slowly open up the floor for our listeners. If anyone has any questions now for Matthew or Ben, you guys can just raise your hands or request to speak. We would gladly bring you up on the floor. Eric, do you maybe have any comments about the topic of sports and general mental health?
Yeah, I mean, all sports have a lot of intrinsic and inherent value because it plays off of team dynamics and structure and leadership and consistency, conditioning, communication, awareness. Like, there's just so many different levels and layers, and I like to pick apart all sorts of sports, whether it's soccer, football, hockey, baseball, golf, chess, bowling, billiards. Each one has its own little, I guess, system or world of lessons that can be learned, as well as like the humility and empathy components of it and the emotional states of it, and how you feel when you lose or when you win, and also the strategic ends of like why that happened, and figuring out what you can do to be better. And I think self-improvement and support systems that are necessary by some team sports really just help people open up and become their true authentic selves and be their best version of themselves. So just in general, I believe like everybody should be at least enrolled in or try to do some form of sport, even if it is just themselves walking every day. We don't consider that a thing, but or sorry, we don't label that a sport, so to speak, but like, just getting 1 hour of fresh air and sunlight and walking every day and detaching and disconnecting from social media and everything that you're constantly on for, it can add immense value and changes to your life outside of the health. And yeah, I think it's never too late to explore these different dynamics and really extrapolate what you can and apply it to your life to be better. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Just while we're waiting for questions to come in, Mary, just Eric, you mentioned Ventrilo earlier. Ventrilo saved my life. So basically, the first company that I set up was doing real-time financial audio news. And when we started in 2005, there wasn't many streaming technologies that were robust and good. And we started off the company. We raised like 250,000 quid, pounds, and we started the business, two of us, and I think we got down to probably our last 20,000 pounds at one point, because the software we were using at the time had a latency in it, and we were delivering this live financial news that people are trading on, and we were using this system. I can't remember the name of it now, but it had a 7-second delay in it. So we had 20 trading firms listening to us, but we had this 7-second delay. So all of them said that if you manage to get 1 second delay, then we'll pay for it. But in the meantime, we're not going to. And this is back in 2005. But then we came across Ventrilo, And then I built a multi-million pound revenue per year business on Ventrilo. So going back to kind of what you were talking about, these kind of streaming technologies, and we were down to we had probably like 2 weeks left of money, but it was kind of then been again resilient, open-minded, trying new things, and just getting out there and grinding and just trying to win. And we ended up finding this old bit of technology in Ventrilo. I'm sure a few people might be familiar with it, but it's basically this voice over IP. You had to install it on your desktop, but then you could have, similar to what we're doing now with like Twitter Spaces, essentially you can broadcast on it and turn people on and off. And then so we had, hundreds of people in there, but it was just a one-way communication. I thought you just made me think of that when you mentioned Ventrilo earlier, Eric, because I haven't heard that name for like 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, it changed my life, honestly. It course corrected my life because I used that as a prototype to build my music streaming platform, and I was looking at it as 16-year-old me was thinking I could take Eminem or Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera or whoever it was at the time, and I could have them perform live and in real time to fans all over the world, paying one small set flat fee. And even if I lived in Bumblefuck America or I lived somewhere, wherever I lived, maybe that artist never tours in that area. So it would allow that artist to make, let's say, in an email blast that goes out to a couple million people, let's say 80,000 or 70,000 people pay that $5 fee or $10 fee, right? The artist makes the money in the comfort of their own home, probably in their pajamas in their garage, performing to an audience all over the world. And I was 16 looking at that, and I was like, there's something here. Like, if I could line up performances every single day for 30 days or 31 days and took a small percentage of how many people paid that fee, it would be crazy. And I ended up dropping out of high school because I was making more money than my parents combined through this small little company called PayPal, by way of rapping in these Ventrilo chat rooms, charging people $1 per person to listen to me freestyle rap for hours and do prank calls. And then, yeah.
That's amazing. I'm just looking at Ventrilo.com now, and it's the last update they did was like 2017, so maybe it's discontinued now. But it says they were the main sponsors of QuakeCon. So what people used to use Ventrilo for, 15, 20 years ago, was all the gamers when they're playing Doom and Quake and games like that, they would all log on like you do on Discord now. But that Ventrilo changed our lives. Hilarious.
I wonder how many
So,
people.
Mary,
Go ahead.
yes. Yeah, no, I was just going to say, Mary, have you got some questions in there? And I think, Aaron, you're probably just going to say how many people's lives were changed by Ventrilo? Well, there's two here.
Well, Clubhouse did the same thing,
Mm.
I think when you talk technology and you talk the future of things, our environments, we become products of our environments very easily. And so when you have a a global shift in the way that people operate and function, like you saw during COVID, and restaurants, bars, lounges, nightclubs shutting down and having to figure out different ways of sustainability. And then same thing with people understanding how to effectively work from home or do remote work and remote jobs. And then adoption of QR codes that have been around forever, but now everybody knows what they are. But before COVID, I would say a lot less people knew what it was. And that also introduced the conversation of cryptocurrency and Web3 and blockchain and NFTs. Not that DeFi and tokenomic systems and coins didn't exist before, not that blockchain didn't exist before, not that people didn't have interest in Bitcoin and other things, but at the end of the day, it stimulated a conversation that created a shift in consciousness that created some level of adoption that was loud enough to get in the media and the spotlight of press and PR. And with that publicity, with that green light, with that positive light shed on it, and the negative, which created a stigma, and that still unfortunately exists today. it allowed for a lot of conversations to be had. It had allowed for a lot of platforms to be created, and Twitter Spaces wouldn't exist if Clubhouse didn't exist, and Clubhouse wouldn't have existed if Justin TV and Ventrilo and Pal Talk and TeamSpeak and all of these others didn't exist. So I think in the sense of people pushing back on innovation and technology, especially on the Web3 side of things, I think that's just, dare I say, ignorant for lack of a better term or word. But yeah, I think people should be embracing the unknown, and instead of taking advantage of people's lack of knowledge, take advantage of the opportunity to teach and educate and teach people how to fish because of their lack of knowledge. Like, give them the tools and resources and support to be able to give that to other people to then create a healthier ecosystem, a better, more ethical, more morale, higher, happy vibration like environment. Because when everybody's crying about, I didn't get my Lamborghini and I didn't get my Ferrari and this project went to shit and everything is trash and the world is burning, like, there's enough negativity in the world. Like, why set up people to have false expectations that are just going to leave them disappointed and not surprised?
But one point you mentioned there about how Ventrilo and TeamSpeak ended up leading to Clubhouse and what have you. The composability, I think now, which is different, where you back then with Ventrilo and things like that, it's open source and people can use the code and build on it. But the really great thing with Web3 now is the composability of all these different projects and protocols and things that can be built. So there's this interoperability and composability. It's back to that thing of, standing on the shoulders of giants. You don't need to be rebuilding all this stuff from scratch. You can already use what's out there. You can already use this protocol or this layer or this piece of infrastructure. And then it just makes it, there's always this thing where at some point in time, who knows if it's going to be in a few years or 10 years or 50 years, but at some point in time, someone will be a billionaire overnight. And the way people can be a billionaire overnight is because of the fact that you don't need to be building all of these components that then now you can just use off the shelf. Because if you went back when I set up my first business, we had to buy some bare metal servers to run our service on, whereas now I just spin up an AWS service. So the cost to do things has fallen a lot more. But then you'll see the same thing with Web3. And the composability is one of the key elements here, because it means every idea or something that someone wants to build, it's easier because someone's built one of the modules or microservices or components for it before. But I think that's what's really exciting now, particularly as you start to see the standardization of some of the leading protocols and then the interoperability between them.
100%. It's already built. I don't understand why people feel the need to reinvent the wheel or create like 15 other wheels. Like, it's as simple, and this, I mean, maybe I'm deducting it or reducing it to this, but it's as simple as what I consider the turkey game. And this is how you can learn anything in about, I don't know, 2 to 3 months. When you are in school and you are tracing your hand to make a turkey, like, everybody does this, but it's a tracing paper technique or a turkey hand game or whatever you want to call it. I need to come up with like a niche name for this, but you trace your hand to create the turkey and you do it enough times that eventually you don't need your hand to create the turkey. So if you want to learn how to rap or you want to learn how to sing, rap on top of the rapper that you like and emulate, and understand that there's a reason why they're successful. There's a reason why their bars, their patterns, their rhyme schemes, their bridges, their cadence, their delivery, there's a reason that everything has this ebb and flow and tempo. And eventually you'll memorize the lyrics of what they're saying and how they're saying it and when they're saying it. And you'll learn timing automatically. You'll learn voice inflection automatically. You'll learn rhyme schemes and patterns automatically. Eventually, you don't need to rap their lyrics with them like karaoke on top of them, because you can remove their lyrics and just say it the same way as them on top of the same underlying beat right? And eventually, because you have it memorized and you've delivered it so many times, you can change that beat out and deliver the lyrics on something else. And eventually, you can change those lyrics up, or you can duplicate them and change each bar and each line to your own and personalize it and customize it. And now suddenly you've written your first song. And I think, breaking down everything in that manner of like reverse engineering it, how did it get here? What had to happen in order to be where it is now, and then how can we make this better? It's literally unpacking, unlearning, and going 10 steps backwards to go 12 steps forward. And I think a lot of people don't really think about the templates and patterns that are left behind with every process that we do, with everything that we create. So instead of being afraid of, well, is this going to work? It's more like, explore to see if anybody else made it work, and then where did they peak, what was the climax, and what could you do differently to make it work even better.
But then Benjamin, this isn't this how you kind of got to the point where you started Weird Whales? Because you were doing your first project and you were frustrated that you're having to do it by hand, so you went out to see there must be a better way to do this. There must have been someone else that's done this.
Yeah, that's correct, Matt. So what happened, as I like to see, is that I opened a few doors when I got into the space, and those doors opened more doors, and eventually just kept compounding it until I've got all these different opportunities right in front of me. And that's exactly what happened with my Weird Whales project. I first got into the space after hearing about my dad's friend buying an NFT for a high amount. After that, I launched my first collection. After that, I wanted to explore, got into different avenues and Discord servers, and slowly launch a generative collection. And then through Weird Whales, I'm speaking today about my story. I've spoken at the University of Oxford. So everything that I'm doing is compounding over time.
Well, and it was Albert Einstein said, compound. He's talking about compound interest, but it's compounding of knowledge. Compounding is the most powerful force in the universe, and that's a really insightful point there, Ben.
You guys definitely left no space for me to add up on nothing. What you and Eric, Matt just shared is really amazing, and I really couldn't agree more, especially in terms of like reinventing the wheel. But that's also like a process of having a healthy marketplaces. There's always healthy competition, and people always be wanna better than others, create a better product, etc., etc. And you gave me Eric, a blast from the past when you mentioned like Pal Talk. That was the changing curve for me, because it was as I'm coming from the Southeastern Europe, that was like the connection to the world for me. And then MSN and etc., etc. Those were like the things that gave me opportunity to open my eyes and to definitely like see the broader picture of the world. Because just by watching news, etc., etc., it was not possible to get like real information of what's going on. And then you got like stuff and services like Pal Talk and stuff like that, who really gave you like true value and connecting with other people. And what Pal Talk reminds me of is actually now Discord nowadays, because except some stuff, but like just this possibility to connect with anyone is at the palm of your hand, and it's so easy and seamlessly. It's really, really, really amazing. Just one more opportunity for you guys to ask any questions. We still haven't got any requests. If anybody wants to request, you can do it now. If not, maybe we can slowly close the space. I would just like to hear some final thoughts from Matt and Benjamin, our today's guests. So please, guys, do share what's on your mind, and how do you see the future of analytics and in general future of NFTs?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. I'll start with the future of NFTs. I think I've probably said it a few times now. I do really think that NFTs is going to be the rails for a lot of different processes, negotiations, transfers of objects across lots of different industries. And I think, like we said earlier, the word NFT will just disappear. Like we don't talk about, the web, or when we're going on to use, when we're going on a Chrome browser. What will be interesting is just to see how quickly it will expand into the existing incumbent industries. Because I think the incumbent industries will fight back, because a lot of them, there's nothing wrong with them, really. They all work, and they work seamlessly and smooth and quick, a lot quicker than Web3. But people now want to be in control of their own destinies and control of their own data. That decentralized element of it, I think, is really important. The democratization and accessibility of data, and also funding through things like NFT, micro scholarships, for example, if it's education, or corporate sponsorship NFTs like we're doing with work in fintech, is going to change the dynamics a little bit and make people look at how they can fund projects that resonate in a different way. So Benjamin and I, for example, we're helping with a decentralized science protocol project, where essentially you have different diseases in the world where there may not be that many people in the world that have them. There might be some very rare disease that only 500 people on the planet have. Now, if I'm Pfizer or AstraZeneca or one of the big drug companies, I'm not going to bother researching that and finding a cure for it, because it's not going to make me any money. However, now that you've got these kind of NFT rails and tokens and things like that, it gives you the ability for a group of people to, create a DAO, for example, and they can go out and get funding from the masses, because this particular rare disease, it may resonate with you because it's similar to something that you had in the past or your family had. So you might want to, donate to the project by buying a token. But in the future, that token may have some IP attached to it, because that research that's gone into this rare disease 3 years later is now a blockbuster drug. And that type of thing begins to change quite significantly because of these new rails that are available. And I think that's what's really, really exciting. Plus, going back to what I said at the very start, NFTs at the moment are tiny. They're so tiny and insignificant compared to the $80 trillion that's on the financial markets. The NFT market at the moment is like $25 billion. It's nothing. But what that means, it means there's so much opportunity, because at some point that $20 billion is going to dwarf that $80 trillion, which is in the world's financial markets. Plus you've got, the opportunities in the metaverse and all the other great cool stuff that's yet to happen. So I think it's a really exciting time for Web3, and it's also an exciting time for the other technologies that are out there that's going to enable a lot of other things, with AI, with quantum computing, with 3D printing. The convergence of all these exponential technologies is really going to help humans live a better life, and just create and do more cool stuff and innovate more. On the analytics side, I think having, like in the way that we used your platform, Mary, NFT Go, for being able to watch the analytics on these different, for me, to use a platform then to watch all of these different market themes and trends form, and seeing how that evolves, I think will be really interesting to take that long view. And talking of long views as well, I'm sure probably Eric and Benjamin will agree as well, is you always want to be taking a long view on stuff. Don't get distracted by the noise, in terms of, and get some of the things we were talking about, from starting companies to, learning skills. Always take the long view. Don't worry about what's going to be happening in the next hour or a few days. Take the long view, get that mind space so you can think clearly with a very long-term horizon, because you can get wobbled out of your path at any point. As long as you go to that long-term kind of North Star point that you want to aim towards, nothing's going to fluster you. And if nothing flusters you, then you're resilient. Then you can cope and do lots of different things at once. That's kind of my final thoughts. Benjamin?
Yes, thank you, Matt, for that. And as you said, looking at the NFT space moving forward, I think as a space, we're slowly evolving to move away from price speculation and more to utility. So at the moment, as it started currently in 2022, NFTs are predominantly profile pictures. An interesting analytic I think Matt mentioned earlier was comparing all the different types of what NFTs can be, for example, profile pictures to lands to all these other use cases. And currently, profile pictures is on top in that graph. But I think over the next 10 years, we're going to see more use cases. For example, everything from the ownership of cars to the ownership of houses will all move to NFT rails, as it provides more transparent layer to this and more ownership and truly owning what you own. As I've had experience of being rugged by Twitter. For example, my account, I built it up to 35,000 followers, and Twitter just decided to delete my account. They deleted it and I'd lost all my followers. And that shows that I don't truly own my followers within the space. But I think with NFT and crypto rails, that can really change it and provide value back to those who produce content on these platforms. And I'm going to end on a quote as some advice to the audience, a quote from Peter Drucker. And he said the best way to predict your future is to create it.
Amazing, Benjamin. Really, really, really thanks. Thanks for sharing this. Eric, would you like to add up maybe something before we close up?
Don't sweat the petty stuff and don't pet the sweaty stuff. That's it. That's my.
Okay, great.
That's the only advice that I can give.
Great. Yeah, Benjamin and Matthew, like we said, this space was a bit different. I'm really glad, really glad we spent some time together again. Hopefully, we'll catch up in London in a few days at NFT London as well. For all our listeners, once more, please do come and visit nftgo.io, create your watch list, start doing your daily dose of analytics. Always do your own research, and at the end of the day, the most important thing, always have fun while doing it, with of course the dose of being serious, but always have fun. And like we said here in the space,